So instead of focusing on warfighting and how to best kill the enemy, the U.S. Air Force Academy hosted a transgender Pentagon official for a symposium on inclusion. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
All too often, I hear leaders talk about providing everyone with dignity and respect like it's an aspirational goal. That's not good enough. Dignity and respect is the bare minimum. It's the floor of where we can be. We must set our sights higher and focus on intentional inclusivity because there are still far too many people out there, not just LGBTQ individuals, that feel marginalized, shut out, or discriminated against. So for all of you out there, I ask you to set out your symbols of pride, share your pronouns in your email, particularly if you're a person who doesn't think they need to. Initiate difficult conversations about racial and gender barriers and share a bit of your vulnerability in a way that draws others in. You all have the power to take intentionally in.
So this is kind of amazing.
Yeah, I love it when ideologues tell other people how to do their job. I mean, this is totally unrelated how you defeat the enemy. I mean, I want exclusivity. I want to exclude the enemy off the face of the earth. And how much training did you have where you were basically told grunt or, maggot or something? Give me 10. Give me 20.
Right. I mean,
I bet that made you feel really included.
The military has, a ton of death by PowerPoint, and it is, the way of the future is to continuously add additional training items onto the soldier. So welcome to Azimuth Podcast. I'm Barrett McNabb, and with me always is my wife, Kimberly McNabb. And if we look at all of this additional training that we're doing, it is taking away from the warfighter's mission.
Yeah, exactly. And, these ideologues and Congress people are just going to kill our poor service members with more PowerPoint instead of letting them do their jobs.
Right. I mean, I retired approximately 9 years ago, and when you look at the training that I had to do, there's mandatory quarterly training and yearly training. So you have the SHARP training, which is the sexual harassment and prevention training. You have the equal opportunity training. These are all fine. Hey, just as a reminder, you're not allowed to discriminate against somebody based on their race or religion. Hey, just a reminder to everybody, you're not allowed to do sexual assault, and you're not allowed to harass people in the workplace. We also had counterterrorism training. So never stay on the first floor of a building. You don't want to go higher than the 7th floor of a building because the ladders on a fire truck can't reach higher than that. Never sit on the aisle of a aircraft. There are things that you learn through this counterterrorism stuff. So all of that stuff is good stuff. But as you are continuously adding more and more frivolous type training, i.e. how to correctly use your pronouns, I think we're starting to lose some of the mission. If you look at the warfighter and across all services, you're seeing an increase in aircraft, whether it's the Marine Corps or the Air Force or the Navy. You're seeing an increase in aircraft that are crashing and killing service members. You're seeing an increase in ship collisions in the Navy. You're seeing an increase in groundings of naval vessels on charted atolls and things like that. You're seeing a increase in fires and the great damage that the fires are doing to Navy ships. And what we're seeing is there too much of this, social justice training that is going on instead of the Navy learning navigation, instead of the Navy learning how to put out fires correctly and spending time doing those jobs. Aircraft maintenance. How many PowerPoint presentations were done on social justice before any lax maintenance is going on with these aircraft? And that's kind of the problem I have with it.
Well, yeah, there are only so many hours of the day, and you're already getting death by PowerPoint for other, actual reasons, and this is not. I'm sorry, the ship doesn't care what your pronouns are. Your enemy doesn't care what your pronouns are. It's just exhausting, and you're going to put people to sleep, and then they're not going to pay attention for the actually important
right
presentation.
And so, the military is obviously responsible for this to the civilian government, right? So the military has obviously officers, non-commissioned officers, and enlisted, but they have service chiefs, which are generals and admirals and things like that. But the Department of Defense, the Secretary of Defense is a civilian. Each of the sub branches of the military, the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Space Force, are all headed by a civilian, right? So there's a
so
civilian
they don't
chain
really
of
know what
command.
they're talking about then.
Right. Well, the point that I'm trying to get to is that the military has to listen to the civilian leadership, and we're not able to go and do on our own. We have to be respectful. So here's an example of an admiral just absolutely doing a great job of being stone-faced on an incident that happened a number of years ago with a congressman. So let's just go ahead and take a quick look.
A lot of odd things happen in Planet Washington. I actually thought this was kind of an April Fool's joke when I saw it today, but it's not. It took place last week in a House Armed Services Committee hearing discussing a military buildup on the island of Guam. Here's Georgia Congressman Hank Johnson. Listen.
This is a island,
And this is true.
At its widest level is 12 miles from shore to shore, and at its smallest level, or smallest location, it's 7 miles between one shore and the other. Is that correct?
I don't have the exact dimensions, but to your point, sir, I think Guam is a small island.
Very small island, and about 24 miles, if I recall, long. So 24 miles long, about 7 miles wide at the least widest place on the island, and about 12 miles wide on the widest part of the island. And I don't know how many square miles that is. Do you happen to know?
I don't have that figure with me, sir. I can certainly supply it to you if you'd like.
So this is the admiral is in the military. We're never told to just say, I don't know, right? So you always say, I don't know, but I will find out the answer for you, which is common in the military. The I don't know and leaving it at that never holds water. It's always, but I will find out the answer and I'll get it to you. So great job on the admiral for doing that.
Yeah, my fear is that the whole island will become so overly populated that it will tip over and capsize.
He said that out loud. He said that out loud. So let's go ahead and listen to the admiral's response to that.
We don't anticipate that.
We don't anticipate that.
His response should have been, here's your sign.
Right.
First of all, not everybody from Georgia speaks that painfully slowly. And what is he doing, taking information for a Wikipedia page, like square miles? I mean, what does that have to do with anything? And you're afraid that the island of Guam is going to tip over? Oh my God, I am so sorry that our honorable service members have to answer to such dumbasses. And is he still a member of Congress?
He's still a member of
We
Congress.
are not sending our best. Please tell me this is not our best.
He's still a member of Congress, but
Is he a flat earther?
The thing, yeah, I don't know. But the thing is obviously the admiral has to be respectful because he's part of the civilian leadership, and unfortunately, it's people like this that are enforcing social justice programs on the military. The military has always been, unfortunately, a social experiment that can't say no, because we are beholden to our oath to the Constitution, and we have to follow these people, these civilian leaders, regardless of whatever stupid thing that they want to impose upon the military. The military just has to do it. It's different for an FBI agent. An FBI agent, if asked, or if a Border Patrol agent is asked to do something that they do not believe in, they can quit. They can quit, and the very next day they can go to their cubicle and take their box or whatever, and they can leave. And it's no harm, no foul. In the military, you can't quit. You just can't quit. You'll go to jail. You'll get a dishonorable discharge. It will affect your life forever. If you get a dishonorable discharge, if you failure to obey orders, failure to adapt, conduct unbecoming, anything that you do to speak out, you are going to get destroyed and your life is over. But anywhere else in the government, you can quit. And if you disagree with something, so the military is a breeding ground for social justice programs. And the thing is, they can't do anything about it.
Assets.
Yeah, exactly. Your property of the United States government, and unfortunately, this has a degradation to military readiness. I mean, we're already seeing the recruiting problems because of the woke programs. And the Secretary of the Army said, "Look, people stop talking about our woke programs so that people don't think there's a problem." Well, how about you don't have woke programs?
Exactly. No.
It could be that. Instead of stopping talking about it, how about stopping the programs and do it that way? I mean, the Army has been working on revamping its physical fitness test. And so the old system was 2 minutes of push-ups, 2 minutes of sit-ups, and a 2-mile run as fast as you can go. And there's standards for age and gender. And so the Army...
Biological sex.
Yeah, exactly. So the Army was looking at doing revamping it so that it would be more combat focused. So there's pull-ups and side pull-ups and deadlifts and combat carries, shuttle run and stuff like that. All great stuff to more accurately simulate the tasks that you would do in combat. And it was gender neutral. The problem is that as it was gender neutral, a greater percentage of females were failing the test. And so Congress said, hey, Army, you need to rework this so that and lower the standards so that more females can pass the test. Man, that is just the opposite of what we need to do.
You know who's not lowering their standards? The enemy.
Right, exactly.
Hello. I tell our kids all the time, don't get in the way of someone else doing their job. Like if they have a janitor at school, don't get in the way if they're doing their job. Don't make their job harder. Don't make mommy's job harder. Don't make me pick you up getting out of the bed. And Congress is actively making the military jobs harder. They need to stand back and just let them do their job. And we've mentally and physically castrated men for the last few decades. And now we're at a point where if China looks at us and say, you throw like a girl, you fight like a girl, instead of that being an insult, people like that Pentagon official would take it as a freaking compliment.
Right. I mean, it is sad. I mean, we have, you see the level of training that the U.S. military does in the past as it pertains to now. And obviously for 2 decades we had the global war on terrorism, and so we had a military that was pre 9/11 and obviously the military that's post 9/11. We mostly have been focusing for the past 2 decades on counterinsurgency or COIN operations, and now we need to focus on high intensity conflict, which is maneuver battle space with armor and tanks and things like that. And I am saddened to see that there's this degradation of training as it pertains to, men, weapons, and equipment, and having to integrate all of those while having to try and figure out whose pronouns or whether this lieutenant colonel is wearing long hair and earrings in uniform, lecturing people on inclusivity.
Well, this is just a symptom of us, calling men, toxic masculinity. Okay, first of all, shut up and tell me what's good masculinity. People that can kill the enemy. That's what I want. And they need to shut up with their toxic feminism. It's toxic feminism. I mean, this is the garbage that we get when we constantly demonize men. And you're having to see it with the lowering of standards of training, because we just aren't having generations of real men. And I've been going to the gym for a long time, as you know. I mean, I remember going to the gym with my dad, and you'd see guys wearing like 1980s, gym stuff that's not there enough, not covering enough, but there's no AC. It's, they're not wearing the weight belts. They're not wearing the little gloves to keep calluses from forming or whatever. They didn't care. They wanted to lift the heaviest weights. They wanted to run the fastest on these little dinky treadmills that shook the whole building when you did it. But you were there to work. You were there to sweat, and you were there to trash talk the other men.
Right.
Like, you were there to build some muscle. And now if you go into a gym, like, everybody's on their phone, and it's just pathetic.
Right. We found a little video that kind of, moves in between generations of 1980s
when men were men
working out, and then now. And we'll for our listening audience, we'll call out some of the people that are
some of the movie titles,
some of the movies that are in here. So
1980s training.
So you've got Arnold Schwarzenegger. You've got Tom Cruise, Dolph Lundgren, Sylvester Stallone, Mr. T, Ralph Macchio, Predator, Carl Weathers. And then now we're moving into 2023.
We have stretching with a pole. Dad bod looking at his phone on a stationary bike. Oh, get that foam roller. Foam roller. Get it. Oh, tennis ball. Yep, can't forget the tennis ball. Stretch those. Lunges. Oh, get that resistance band. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, the enemy's laughing at us. It's so bad. Oh, I do not feel safe with these people guarding our country. I want to see this. I would feel safe with that. Or better yet, this.
Oh.
Yeah. That makes me feel really safe.
Right. Well, we saw this at the Air Force Academy, and it just needed to be called out so that you can see what is happening in the military. Unfortunately, with the being beholden to the civilian leadership, which it needs to be. Obviously, we don't want the military running amok, but with the civilian leadership, especially under the Biden administration, continuing the march of social experimentation on a captive audience such as the military, it's just a degradation of our combat power. Yep. So thank you so much for tuning into Azimuth Podcast. Please stay tuned after these messages.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all of the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in.
So Dark Brandon gave his State of the Union address last night, and we wanted to talk about it with you. Welcome to Azimuth Podcast. I'm Barrett McNabb, and I'm joined with my beautiful wife, Kimberly McNabb.
Thanks, Barrett. Now, I usually don't care, but when you have a president who's constantly giving content for memes and GIFs, you have to tune in, even if it's just to see how long can he speak for. When on a normal day, it seems he can't speak for amount of time that's longer than our 7-year-old's attention span.
That's right.
I mean, the supply of Adderall and cocaine at the White House is not short.
Yeah, I mean, this was really the most disjointed speech ever. He was, again, Dark Brandon. He was angry. He was kind of like that old man, get off my lawn, is kind of the tone that he had. And I don't really think he was trying to bring the country together at all.
No, it was super partisan, and he demonized half the country. And yet he yells, democracy is under attack. Yet his people banned RFK from running as a Democrat. His people tried to get Trump thrown off the ballot every which way to Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that really caught my eye is I have seen every single State of the Union address ever since I was in college, and which is quite a few of them now. But still, I have never seen a president publicly admonish the Supreme Court justices sitting in front of him. It was, I mean, obviously the Supreme Court, they come, there's only about 4 or 5 members. It wasn't the complete court, but they sat stoically, but you could see a little bit of surprise when President Biden addressed them directly and blamed them for Roe v. Wade. And honestly, it took him a little bit of time to get the words out, but it almost seemed as though he was threatening the Supreme Court for their decision. He finally was able to get a word salad out and talk about how it was going to, be effective at the ballot, and that women were going to vote against them and vote in favor of candidates that were pro Roe v. Wade. But still, it took him a while to get that word salad out, and it looked like he was kind of threatening the Supreme Court. And again, I have never seen a State of the Union where the president publicly admonishes the Supreme Court, and I was really kind of surprised.
Yeah, well, the judicial branch is a separate branch, so,
Sure.
He doesn't have that authority. I'm sure he'll find a way. It's going to happen. But, also, we're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic.
Right.
And, also, you can't convince me that he cares about democracy when his people, he cares more about illegals than the very people who elected him. And he even went on to say that he's not going to separate immigrant families. Well, which families he will separate? Families who don't use their kids' preferred pronouns.
Right. I mean, it was very interesting when he was talking about separating families. A lot of, not every family, but a lot of instances of human trafficking where the children are there and they have their uncle that's escorting them across, and really it's more than likely it's human trafficking, and to say that you're never going to separate a family, obviously it needs to be on a case-by-case basis, which is one of the problems that this administration has as it pertains to the border, is they're treating everybody the same. They're treating everybody with an asylum claim, and then they're releasing them into the United States proper, and they're not doing a good job of vetting these people, and to say you're never going to separate a family, I think that's clearly a mistake.
Absolutely. And, he went on to bounce from topic to topic. And unfortunately, taking responsibility was not on the teleprompter. Yeah.
I mean, when you look at how he ended his speech, he said, "God bless the troops." And, tell that to the Army Reserve soldiers from Georgia that died in a drone attack. Tell that to the troops in Afghanistan. And speaking of that, one of the Gold Star fathers, that one of the Marines that died in the bombing in the Afghan was yelling at Biden, and the security told him to stop, and they arrested him. They removed him. He's saying, look, remember my child, remember the Marines that died, and honestly, Biden didn't talk about that at all.
Well, it was like the one time Biden turned down the opportunity to say, my son served in Iraq and he died too.
Right. Right. I mean,
uses that at every possible turn.
So it was interesting. I mean, he is again, the speech was Dark Brandon at its best. He kept referencing my predecessor. My predecessor obviously didn't say Trump by name, but you can who the predecessor is, and I think he treated this more as a campaign speech than it was a State of the Union. I mean, you had Kamala Harris jump up and down, doing thigh exercises.
Yeah, I'm sure her legs are sore today from all that jumping up and down. Very much unlike Speaker Mike Johnson, who is very stoic. Good job for him, because I would have been more like Marjorie Taylor Greene, which I am from Georgia.
Well, I mean, even after the speech, Speaker Johnson, he said, look, Biden missed his cue. He's supposed to wait for the Speaker of the House to introduce the president, and Biden just Dark Brandon just got into the zone right away. So he never actually got to do the cue of, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce the President of the United States. That just didn't happen.
Well, I mean, it was probably a relief for Speaker Mike Johnson, because he didn't have to introduce Dark Brandon.
Right, exactly. Now, what are some of the other things that he mentioned in his speech?
Oh, well, there were a lot of topics, but one that got me really bothered was he is going to be responsible for even more American lives. Biden said that he is planning for the U.S. military to build a port for the distribution of aid on the Gaza Strip, but the plan would not put boots on the ground.
Yeah, that's. I think that's a little disingenuous.
Absolutely, who's going to build it?
Maybe just using semantics by saying that American troops, whether they're Seabees or U.S. Army combat engineers, whether they're not going to actually have sand on the bottom of their boots because they're not going to be on the ground, but they're definitely going to be at the tactical level of operations building this port.
Yeah, and he's saying this to feed those people that are upset, claiming Israel's not distributing aid to the Gazans. That is not true. Hundreds of trucks go in every day, and they get attacked by hundreds of Gazans, and they'll clip videos of Israeli soldiers defending the trucks from the mass hordes. It's supposed to be distributed evenly, not just have Hamas attack and steal all the aid. So it's feeding into this agenda. And also, even if they remain offshore, guess what Hamas is capable of doing, as Israel well knows? Sending bombs.
Right.
So, I mean, come on. They're going to get bombed. Someone's going to die. And, another thing. Biden even said that Hamas has a duty to protect its citizens. Oh, my God. Hamas cares about its citizens like BLM cares about black people. Okay, no. Their charter says that their goal is to kill Jews, that the Jews are little Satan, America is big Satan. And even if you don't care about Jews as an American, you got to care about this. You got to believe people when they say they're going to do something, like Putin's going to take the Balkans next. Hamas wants to kill America, and if they had the technology to do it, they would.
Absolutely. I mean, it's no stretch that if the Houthis are receiving guided missiles and things like that from Iran in order to close off the Red Sea through terror and hitting ships. Can you imagine what the technology is that could be used to attack U.S. Warships that are either acting as a roll-low, roll-on, roll-off ship to bring cargo, or whether it's the bridging equipment that could possibly be used by the U.S. Army combat engineers to create a beachhead that you could load cargo on. I mean, right now we're doing, along with the Jordanians, is airdrops, but those are super expensive, and they are using a lot of fuel to only get a few pallets. And unfortunately, parachutes don't always work. And while U.S. Army paratroopers have reserve chutes, the pallets don't. And there's already been a couple of instances of complete malfunctions on pallets that have, rolled off the back of the aircraft, and the chute doesn't open. And there's been a number of people that have been killed by falling pallets, hitting buildings and things like that. And, so if you are looking at a controlled distribution, definitely airdrop's not the way to go. They just get, ransacked immediately.
Yeah, you don't know who's going to snatch it up. But, also, who's going to build the port? I say we send the assholes, those who are blocking Biden from the Capitol to give the speech, the people screaming in the streets from the river to the sea, send them on a one-way ticket to Gaza to build this port, and send the Hamas squad to lead them in building the port.
Yeah, I mean that's a great point. I mean, obviously the State of the Union was delayed because Biden was late due to a lot of the protests and everything. But still, if they want to do something rather than just protesting, if they want to take action, you could volunteer and go build this port over there.
Yeah, and I'm sure they didn't get charged, unlike that Gold Star father.
Right, exactly. Now, there was, as always, a rebuttal that was given by the Republicans, and it was Senator Katie Britt from Alabama. She was elected to the U.S. Senate in the midterm elections in 2022, and she is an up-and-coming individual for the Republican Party, and she had a lot of neat things to say. I was very, very pleased. She, wasn't in a studio. She was at her kitchen table, and really, she was representing moms. Moms and dads sitting at the family table talking about the good, the bad, and even the ugly. And, one of the things that she focused on was the border and how President Biden and his administration have just absolutely failed on this. She talked about security. She talked about China. She hit some really great talking points. And she even got in some Southern humor. She said, God bless your heart. And,
bless your heart.
Bless your heart. And if you're from the South, that's not a good thing.
You're effing stupid and no one can help you. That's what that means.
Right. And so I thought that was kind of a nice Southern dig to get at him. But still, she had a lot of great points. And she was assertive without being combative. And I think apparently she might be on a short list to be President Trump's VP. One of the things that I've always said that what Trump needs to do is there's a capability gap in his or demographic gap for suburban moms. And that's a demographic that he lost in his last election. And so I've always said that having a suburban mom with school-age kids is probably would be a good pick for him in order to shore up that demographic, which I do see as a weakness for him. And, obviously she's an up-and-comer. She's only been in politics for 2 years, but still she was a force last night.
Yep. And a thing that she said that I've tried to highlight in some of our episodes, but she did a much better job of highlighting it, is, he's been in politics longer than I've been alive. Right. And, when was the last time he filled up his own gas tank? When was the last time he pushed his own shopping cart? And I think the news kind of let this, get buried, but there was, it was a couple of months ago, he was going to local, small businesses. He went to a bike shop. He went to a place that sold smoothies. And one little teeny, social media post or news article, a little blip out there said Biden was shocked that a smoothie was $6. Like, yeah, it's $6.
That's exactly how much it costs. That's what your inflation has done.
To a very small drop of what everyday people deal with.
Yeah, I couldn't
see
agree
it,
more.
it's hard for you to acknowledge.
Yeah, when you live in a plastic wrap bubble, it's hard to understand what the real people are experiencing.
Yeah, I mean, he has people to do that for him, the little people.
Right. Now, it was kind of interesting after the speech, a lot of Democrat leaders kind of lambasted him for using the word illegal. And
Newcomer!
Yeah, newcomer. And so he missed the boat on, missed the messaging. And even Nancy Pelosi said, he shouldn't have said that, but let's focus on something else. It's true. I mean, they are illegal immigrants. If they have crossed the border without going through a normal port of entry, and they're sneaking across, that is an illegal immigrant.
Yep.
It just is what it is. So anyway, we enjoyed the State of the Union speech. Again, I always watch it. I have a cocktail and I'll sit there and watch it. But I tell you, it was really interesting just how partisan it was. I mean, Dark Brandon came out in full force. And again, it was almost like the old man, get off my lawn, was basically the theme of the evening that night. And we just wanted to give you our thoughts on it, and thank you for watching Azimuth Podcast.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in.
What is a high-value man? Let's talk about it. Welcome to Azimuth Podcast. I'm Kimberly McNabb, and I'm joined by my loving husband, Barrett McNabb.
Hello, everybody.
So a lot of videos lately are showing ladies looking for a high-value man or what it's like to be a high-value woman. And all these women are mostly just laying out demands. I mean, first of all, do you really think men are watching your videos? You don't see how they would be turned off? I mean, if men put out these videos, they'd be called sexist.
Oh, absolutely. This is definitely a one-way conversation. If a man put out, hey, this is what I want in a woman, that would absolutely be destroyed on the internet. The fact that it's women saying it's empowering. If men say it, it's chauvinistic.
Yeah, it's like, okay, what if a man said, go make me a sandwich, I want you to have a 23-inch waist, and I want you to like video games.
Right.
I mean, come on. No, it's other women watching these videos, and, they're usually single, other young women. It's like the blind leading the blind. The last one I saw was a 21-year-old going on $1,000 date.
Crazy.
Well, I guess Bidenomics is working for her. So let's watch.
Princess treatment only, and I just met a guy who does just that. If you're new here, welcome to my dating diaries, where I overshare my dating life in New York. This guy slid into my DMs on Instagram saying that my dating diaries are very downtown based and I should have an uptown edition. So let's call this guy Uptown Man. I asked what a night uptown entails, and he said shopping at Hermes and dinner at Daniel. At first I thought he was kidding, but then when he called me a car, I saw that the end location was Hermes on Madison Ave. Once I arrived, I met him inside the store, and I was greeted with champagne, and then we went straight to the shoe section. I tried on the Oron sandals and was debating between the brown and white. He preferred the white, so I went with that. He then checked out, and we walked over to Daniel. Uptown Man was an extreme gentleman, and he told me he believes in princess treatment only. He talked me up like no other and told me I'm so worthy for a 21-year-old. We talked about our favorite spots in London, Paris, and Saint-Tropez. That's when I told him I'm going to Paris at the end of this week, and he offered to make me reservations while I'm there. He told me that I'm worth so much more than a last-minute reservation at some mid-bar downtown. Also, the food and drinks at Daniel was top tier. It was probably one of the best dinners I've ever had. This was the best part. At the end of dinner, he offered to bring me back to the kitchen to meet the chef at the restaurant. Before going our separate ways, we made plans to see each other once I'm back in town. He then called me a car and texted me immediately after. Uptown Man sets the bar extremely high. Ladies, don't listen to any dusty man when they tell you your standards are too high.
Oh, so many things.
I know.
First of all, Barrett is a major foodie, so he is probably jealous just of the restaurant experience.
Yeah, actually, all I heard was wah 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 wah, and I just was looking at the food.
Well, her voice does sound like that.
Yeah.
But it shows you what a lowbrow knuckle dragger I am from Georgia. The fact that she knows how to properly say Hermes. I thought it was Hermes. But also, how can you say you're 21 without saying you're 21?
Right.
Being able to wear those pointy shoes.
Right.
That's how you say it. Like, that's not happening at 40 married with kids. It's just not.
Yeah. This totally seemed a little transactional.
Very much.
I mean, it was, you can impress somebody, but the interesting thing is to do a direct message. So there was no like you met the person and stuff. This was I'm doing a direct message. I'm DMing you, and notice she said that he slid into my DMs. Right? That just sounds terrible.
Dirty.
But with him, just doing direct messaging, there's no engagement before, and then to have $1,000 date.
And how do you know someone? I mean, they probably didn't put all the details out there, but how do you know someone who is claiming they are? Because it's like, okay, I'm going to send you a car, and now it's going to take you to a basement, and you're human trafficked. I mean, there's just so many problems with this. But like you said, she seems very transactional, and people. You need to really think about things like this. It's going to be a transactional relationship. It's not going to be built on love. And so, if they're together a long time, which is highly unlikely, but if they are, don't cry when you realize there's no love there and you find yourself cheating with the pool boy. I mean,
right. I mean, the interesting thing about this is I haven't seen her channel. We just saw this expensive date, but there's nothing wrong with women that are dating and things like that. But I think we've seen that there is this weird expectation, and we did a video on this on Oyster Girl and Cheesecake Factory Girl. We'll put a link to those up there. That video did very well, but still we see this, this expectation of, even first dates of just being absolutely over the top.
Yeah. Also, with him saying, oh, you need an uptown experience and being willing and able to spend $1,000 on the first date, is showing you up front what that person values.
Right.
And in this case, it's money and a chic lifestyle. So, if they end up in a relationship, she may not bring in as much money as he does. And if that's the case, there's probably going to be a power imbalance.
Yeah.
There.
I agree.
And it's not going to be a loving relationship. It's just going to be based on money
fact,
and how much money you spend.
I think there's a term for it. I think it's called love bombing. And it's where you are just going absolutely over the top at the very beginning of the relationship. And, some people see this as actually a red flag if the person is just going absolutely over the top. I mean, again, they had never met until he sends her to Hermes to meet up. That's where she met him. So there was no real interaction other than those direct messages. That just seems creepy.
Yeah, and also, ladies, you got to realize this is not sustainable. And it's in human nature to get spoiled very, very quickly.
Right.
And so if he's just showering you, and people tend to want more and more and more, whether it's sugar, whether it's alcohol, whether it's money, you're going to want more and more and more. And life just doesn't work that way. No. So what are you going to do if something happens with the economy and his job? Are you going to dump him because he can't spend money on you? Or if you're in a long-term relationship and you have kids, guess what? That's not happening. That right. Lifestyle is not happening. You are going to go from queen to servant, and you're going to have a very hard time adjusting. He's going after a 21-year-old.
Right.
And he called her, worldly for a 21-year-old, so he's probably older. And I'm sorry, but what do you think's going to happen? What are you bringing to the table? You're a pretty young girl. And what's going to happen when those looks go away? He's probably going to dump you like Leonardo DiCaprio and go get another 21-year-old.
Right. I mean, obviously, it goes to your point of this power imbalance. I mean, honestly, he called her worldly, as a compliment. But I don't know exactly how worldly you can be at 21.
21.
Now, you could be well traveled, more than
Right.
likely, but it's almost like these fitness influencers that are 20, 21, 22, and obviously they're
Do this to be fit. Well, I'm like,
they're-
you're 22.
Yeah, we were all 21 once, and we all looked like you, and we were able to drink and eat whatever we wanted. But then you get older, so it's kind of like that, where these fitness influencers, if you want to look like me, buy my course, and they're trying to market this to 40-year-old women, and it's just not going to work. And so the same thing by putting out there that that she's worldly is really just trying to kind of stroke her ego a little bit.
And it's something only a 21-year-old would fall for.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
when you get a little older, you get a little smarter. And she, back to spending this amount of money on a date and referring to guys who don't have such means as Dusty, you need to realize there's no such thing as a free lunch. That's Econ 101. So if he spends $1,000 on a date, he's willing to spend that much money. What is he expecting for $1,000?
Right.
I mean, come on, something's going to happen there. Now, probably the only thing I can agree with in this video is she says that he said, you're worth more than last minute plans. And there is some truth to that, because oftentimes, the dating world is just awful. It's been a long time, obviously, but it's
Right.
awful. Obviously, it hasn't gotten any better. But, people make last minute plans. It's usually an indicator that you're not the first person they had in mind. Some other plan with a hotter girl probably fell through, and you're the last one on his list.
Right.
I mean, so there is some truth to her video and some good advice in that. But Barrett, you mentioned on other people who post things to
Right.
this effect, like what percentage of the population that these women are going for?
Yeah, there's a lot of podcasts that address this. The Whatever podcast, and whenever they're doing, and there's more than just that. But Better Bachelor talks about this as well. But it's what is the percentage of men that women are going for, and so whenever they're like, well, what is your ideal guy? And the I'm just going to give some comment. There's not. I don't have the full list, but
right.
but it's above 6 foot. It's making $250,000. Some women say $1 million, but $250,000 a year. They talk about genitalia size and what they're looking for, and when you add this up, it's like 0.1% of the human male population is what these women are looking for.
And to make $1 million a year, most men in what would be a good age range for these women to date, they're at least their father's age.
Yeah.
Oftentimes. And so
exactly.
what? You don't have an age limit or something?
So that and they want a young guy.
No, there are men under 30 that make $1 million. Mm-hmm.
And so really when they're confronted, they're usually shocked, confronted with what the averages are. So I believe the average height of a male is 5'9". The average income is in the $50,000 range. And if you do worldwide, it's obviously less than that, because there's people that are in Africa and Asia that are making way less than that. But still, if you just bring this back to the United States, and then the genitalia size, they're going.
A ruler's not going to fit in most of these little purses that they sell these days.
So they're just really the biggest thing is all of these women want the same guy, and so he
gets the pick of the litter.
He gets the pick of the litter, and not only does he get the pick of the litter, but he gets to go back to the trough a bunch of times,
once
because
he's done with
all of the girls are only wanting him, and they're excluding everybody else. And this obviously it's a problem.
Well, also, a lot of times a like attracts like. So, there are some of these women out there that they're like at least 200 pounds and they don't take care of themselves and they're not educated or whatever.
But they still want that
they
same
still want
0.1%.
that same guy. I'm like, no, they're probably after the same percentile woman that you are looking for.
Right.
And, I mean, and men can have, flip the script. Men can have unrealistic expectations too. They might want a 21-year-old woman who's 5'9" and 110 pounds and big boobs and a 23-inch waist and, likes to play video games. I mean, do you see, this is how ridiculous these women are being. It's just the opposite side of the same script.
Right, absolutely. And the biggest problem is by choosing all of these material and physical characteristics, you're ignoring what the person is on the inside. So you imagine meeting all of your criteria, but the person is a narcissist, or meeting all of your criteria, or the person is just mean. I mean, do you settle for that just because they met all your physical and material requirements? It just kind of makes me sad a little bit.
Yeah, and I think they're also misusing the words high value.
I couldn't agree more. Yep.
Because, okay, if you're going to treat searching for a relationship as a transaction, let's talk transaction. If you're looking for a product, say you're buying a new car, you want a good value, or most people do, that not just get from point A to point B, but point A to point B safely and fuel efficient and, not be completely embarrassing, but good for the money, the amount of money you're willing to spend. So high value is contributing to your life. So if you are a high value woman, you're going to contribute to your partner's life, whether it's emotionally, financially, all the above. So relationships aren't just taking and laying down demands. No one wants to be in a relationship with a spoiled toddler.
Right.
You have to contribute.
And that's a great point, because a lot of these podcasts where they're talking, the men will say, okay, these are all the things that you want, and you now realize that the expectation management is a little high because there is just not the amount of men that you think there are that meet all those criteria. But oftentimes the hosts will say, well, what do you bring to the table? And they'll say, well, I bring my looks, and that really gets usually the hosts going, because you are a devaluing asset if looks is the only thing that you're bringing to the table,
because your looks are going to go devalued over time.
Your looks are going to go down over time, and so if that's the only thing that you're bringing to the table, you might need to look a little deeper and find something else out. Now, I think that and I've said this many times, Kimberly, you are getting more beautiful with age, and I love you more now than I ever have in my life. I mean, we're just falling deeper in love, and so that doesn't apply to you, but I if you are saying this is the only thing that if it's transaction, and I only bring one thing to the table, and that's the way I look and the body that I have, that is going to be a problem if you bring nothing else.
Well, especially if you have kids. It's just that molehill of time becomes a mountain once you have kids. I'm just saying.
Right.
But so it's like the blind leading the blind. These women are watching each other's videos, and they're just as young and naive as the next one. And so I thought, well, okay, we're about to celebrate our 12th wedding anniversary. There are people who've been married much longer than we have, of course, but I would say we have been through a bit more than definitely other married couples I know. And so maybe we should educate them on what our standards were when we were single, and talk about our first date and things that we found to be green flags.
Right. And especially since you are looking at, in a lot of these instances on TikTok and shorts and websites and stuff, are single people giving relationship advice.
Yeah, it's like,
Might want to have a married couple give you relationship advice.
Exactly. So to paint the picture, we met the night before, and yes, it was at what we fondly call the Irish Embassy.
Right. It was an Irish bar.
It was an Irish bar.
Irish bar.
So we met the night before. He got my number, and the next day was Valentine's Day, and my cousin, she was married, but her husband was in the Navy, so he was gone, and I was single at the time, so I'm like, okay, let's just celebrate together. I'll make, I'll cook food or whatever, and so we invited him, and I woke up the next morning, I'm like, oh God, I gotta clean my cousin's apartment and cook.
Because the date was at the cousin's apartment.
Yes, and so I knew he was willing to spend money on me because he bought me a drink the night before. So that was a non-issue. He brought over these little plush Thai dogs as a little present for both of us. So he's considerate in that fashion, and
so it's almost like it was a chaperone date.
well, yeah. I mean, it's nice to have, right? But my standards when I was single was, I've never been obese, so I didn't want obese because I wasn't obese, and if someone's obese, they're not going to understand me exercising every day. They're just not, and they're going to get frustrated when I have to carve out time of my day to go and do that. Well, Barrett was in the Army for 16 years and still to this day, retired 8-9 years later, can run much faster than I can now. I can run further, but still he understands me needing to do that every day. Also, I wanted someone who's educated because I have a master's in accounting. So I did not expect anything from someone that I did not check that box off myself. Now, these days, being educated at a university might be more of a detriment.
Right.
It's like I would rather hear they watch World War II documentaries and Ken Burn documentaries and have read the Federalist Papers, stuff like that. Also, another standard was, okay, look, if they do have kids, there can't be any mama drama. Because I watched my mom go through that with my stepsister. None of that. I was 26 years old when we met, so I wanted 26 to 35 years old because, for one, I didn't want to set myself wiping someone's cleaning up someone's depends in 10 years. But also, there are these things that you grow up with, and I wanted someone close enough to my age where we could have similar things to talk about.
Right.
And, Barrett remembers the 80s a little better than I do, but he appreciated some of those things because he was closer to my age. And also I wanted someone who's a Christian and have not an overly religious Christian, like there every time the doors are open because I like to spend my time in other ways, but, just for moral purposes. And if kids ever came in the picture, raise them according to the same set of morals. And so, Barrett, what were some of your standards back a long time ago when you were single?
Yeah, and those are all great standards to have, and I mirror a lot of them. One of the things that was a barrier for me was the fact that, you're right, I was in the Army and I was doing combat deployments just continuously, and so I never had a really an opportunity to meet somebody because I was just going back and forth to the sandbox all the time, and it was really difficult to meet people, and I had high standards as well. The biggest thing that I wanted was somebody that had my same values, who shared my same values, and that's to be patriotic, to have love for your country, to have love for God, and to accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. I wanted, somebody that, shared my interests in physical activity. We both were very physically active. Obviously, I got paid to work out in the morning, and I enjoy doing that. But still, I wanted a non-smoker because I didn't smoke. My father died from heart disease, mostly attributed to his decades and decades of smoking. So I didn't want somebody to do that. Honestly, one of the things that I really didn't want was to have somebody that was married previously, and nothing nefarious with that. Just, I only wanted to be married one time, and I wanted to share that experience with somebody as being the first time, because I want to be married forever, and so I think it was definitely worth it to wait and find you, and I think God let me find you at the right time. I think that was super important for me, and to go along with your education. I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice with a specialization in law enforcement and police science, and so I wanted somebody at least to be able to talk to.
Right.
And to be able to have conversations with at a higher than 7th or 8th grade level, because I fell in love with your mind and your personality and your beauty all at the same time. And so it was important to me to be able to love your soul and to love your mind as well. And that's really kind of what I was looking for.
Yes, and I agree with all that. Also, the non-smoking thing. My parents grew up around smoking parents, so my brother and we constantly heard, just down bad-mouthing people who smoked and how gross it was. And I was led under the impression growing up that was the worst thing I could bring home.
Was a smoker?
A smoker. And I'm not used to being around friends and family that do that anymore. So now I get nauseated when I am around someone who smokes. And then the dip thing is just so gross. And so all my friends, always told me, your standards are too high. Your standards are too high. And I'm like, man, they need to watch some of these videos. They're really
and I tell you,
ridiculous.
to be tobacco free in the U.S. Army Infantry is a tall order. I escaped that.
And in rural Georgia, it's
Right.
definitely a tall order. So some green flags for me on our first date.
Okay.
So Barrett is a pretty upbeat person. So that's just kind of rare in general in society to have someone who's a little upbeat, not hey, everybody, but a good upbeat,
Positive attitude.
Yes, a positive attitude, but not being lovey-dovey, hippie, kumbaya, drum circle type. So intellectually curious is also another thing that's hard to find, and that's another reason why I suggested we do this podcast, because the more successful podcasters out there are very curious about the world and about getting to know people, and hopefully one day we'll be at a point where we can have some really cool guests on, and we can might not have ever reached a Joe Rogan standard, but still
We're coming for you, Joe.
Yeah. So I like the natural curiosity, and if you want something that's very intellectual, you can do that as well. And just so many people you can't do that with. And then when I was single, there were a lot of guys who weren't really willing to talk about themselves. Yes, to say, "Oh, I was captain of the football team" level, but deeper than that. You're willing to talk about yourselves, and you have so many stories, and guys, that's what women don't want to hear stupid one-line jokes. It's ridiculous. No, you need to go out and develop yourself and get some stories to tell, because women like that.
Have depth.
Yes, depth. That's going to bring people to you. I have seen on many occasions, we would go out to a bar or something, and some guys, they think, oh, I'm going to talk about my Corvette or possessions, and people kind of especially after the second or third thing, they kind of zone out, like, okay, we got it, you're a hoarder or whatever. But you start telling stories, especially Barrett's stories, and next thing you know, you have half the place listening to Barrett. And so I just found that fascinating, and 3 hours go by just so easily. And then another green flag for me was, it's just ridiculous, like how many first dates someone could go on, and I'm sure this has definitely not changed in 14 years. is guys think that it's okay to mention sex
Right.
or allude to it on a first date.
Right.
And it's like, it's not cool to talk about the girl's butt or how I want to touch it or, whatever.
Right. It's showing the value right there, the transactional value when you're doing that.
Yes, exactly. So there was none of that on our first date. And then, ladies, lean into this one. He expressed his intention at the end of the first date, like, I want to go on another date with you.
Right.
So I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to have to spend 5 days wondering if he's going to call. And women, my advice to you is don't chase men. I don't think these women who preach high value this or that or should spend this much money on a date are chasing men. But still, if you are, stop it.
Right.
Stop it right now. Okay.
If a man is serious, he's going to be assertive and let you know what his intentions are.
Exactly.
And what he's looking for. I mean, if it's just casual, you need to say that. You need to say, I'm really not looking for a serious relationship. Or if you are saying, hey, I'm open to serious relationships, in fact, I don't do casual, then it lets the woman know what your intention is. And I think by being assertive and saying, look, I really enjoy you and I enjoy talking to you. I enjoyed your cooking as well. It was very good because she cooked. And, I want to see you again.
Mm-hmm. And, women, we have to be honest, our biological timeline is nowhere near the same as basically the polar opposite of men. Our reproductive years, where we can easily get pregnant and carry a healthy child with the best chances, are much younger than men. And so men, stop wasting women's time. We don't have a lot of it.
Right.
And then finally, the final green flag for me was you left the apartment and we hugged. Mm-hmm. And it was just very comfortable. It was like home. It was very comfortable. It was not just like hugging anybody else.
Right.
I'm like, wow, just a hug. So, Barrett, were there some
absolutely
other green flags for you?
First of all, I when I met you, I saw you from across the room, and my heart stopped. Absolutely heart stopped. And so obviously a green flag was the fact that you were absolutely stunningly beautiful. And as I've said, as you have
I was 26.
But as I said before, as you have gotten older, you are becoming more and more beautiful. And you're, absolutely a woman. And so the other green flags that I had were that the fact that you did want to have a date the next night, and it was in a safe space, and so it wasn't like it was that you were lining up dates to have one right after another because your cousin invited us, and it was as almost as if it was a chaperone date because it was the two of you and it was me. But I got to, meet your family right away and somebody that you care about deeply. And, we were able to talk as well. One of the big green flags to me was your intellect and the fact that you had a master's degree and the fact that we could talk more about sports or the weather or things that are kind of getting to know you, small talk. We were able to go beyond that. A green flag was the offer to cook. As well. I mean, again, it wasn't a $1,000 date, but it was, you caring about feeding, your potential suitor, and so that was a really cool green flag. I really like the fact of your Christianity and your morals, because we did talk about that. I was nervous because you did ask me how old I was, and we're 9 years. Have a 9-year age difference, and
Met the cutoff.
And man, I met the cutoff. Right at the very high bar. So there's been a number of TikTok videos and Instagram videos that I've seen that men are lying to women about their age, and then they get there and they're obviously older, and then men are saying, well, age is just a number. Tell the truth. Tell the truth.
I mean, come on. First of all, you're going to have similar life stories as you experience history, historical events and whatnot, like, where you were on 9/11, that type of thing, and, how you remember historical events where you like the same music or whatever. Actually, I think I like older rock better than he does.
Remember, I'm an 80s kid, so the 80s pop is my jam.
Oh, I'm totally more into the AC/DC and Boston and things like that. But you appreciate similar music, similar movies, and also I had dated men like right at my age or younger, and it felt like babysitting after the first month. And so I've never understood these cougars out there that are like, oh, my boyfriend's 20 or whatever. I'm like, ugh, why? Right. What are you talking about? No, I mean, just the maturity level, because most women mature faster than men. And so it's just, I never understood it. And then, like I mentioned earlier, I didn't want to set myself up to be changing a depends in 10 years. I mean, women, we're good at looking past wrinkly skin and all that stuff, unless it's on us. But it's like, come on, and then, what if it leads to something serious, and then you take the guy home to your mom and dad, and then your dad has more in common with your lover than you do.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of weird.
Right.
Weird.
Yeah, and one of the things that I really liked is we're going to not get into any details because it's none of anybody's business. But as far as intimacy goes, we waited quite a while, and so it was something that was important to both of us, that we wanted to be very serious with each other, and so it was worth the wait. I mean, we were able to learn so much more about each other, and to have a deeper relationship than I think most casual relationships have. And then both the men and the women in those type of casual relationships, I don't think they value it as much, and they're not looking for as deep a relationship. And I think the complexity and the depth of our courtship was was perfect.
I think you build a stronger foundation the longer you wait. Certainly, we didn't wait till marriage. I mean, nowhere close. But yeah, you build a stronger foundation as a couple that is able to talk and do things other than sex.
Right.
The longer you wait.
Right. Absolutely. And it was perfect. I mean, and when you say, well, gosh, you guys are married, perfect is not that it is.
Nothing's perfect.
Nothing. Yeah. Perfect is we have a perfect marriage, and the perfect marriage includes good times, bad times, ugly times. I mean, but the biggest thing that we have is the power to communicate with each other, and to say that we never have an argument, that would be disingenuous. That'd be disingenuous to say. And if anybody ever tells you that, they're lying. I mean,
yes.
You are two human beings, and you're always, there's different wants, needs, and motivations that everybody has. But the thing is that we sit down and talk about it. So when I say it's a perfect marriage, it truly is a perfect marriage, because we know how to communicate with each other, and we know how to solve problems. Again, to have the good, the bad, and the ugly in the marriage is what makes it perfect.
Right. And, I think everyone expects things to be perfect now, and they don't know how to fully communicate, where they're coming from, or they assume anything that is opposed to them is automatically the enemy. That's not a realistic way to live. I mean, you're going to find confrontation at work and your relationships. I mean, even your relationship with your own parents. I mean, are you going to end a relationship with a parent every time you disagree with them? You would have separated at age 3. So, you just gotta kind of have to be a grown-up and learn how to do those things.
Right. I mean, even starting off from the very beginning of our marriage, to get married and then 2 weeks later move to Africa.
Yes, that was hard for me because I had never lived overseas. I had never been further east of Jamaica. So that was hard. And, Barrett had never been married before. He never lived in Africa either. He had been overseas before. And then, all the other significant others, that not only were they married, but they'd been married a long time, because most of the wives were the same age as their husbands. And a lot of the people stationed there had been in the service.
And had children. And had kids.
So all that time. So, they'd been married at least, 9-10 years. So they were used to it, and they had kids. And so here I was, a newlywed, younger, and no kids. So it was just difficult all around. And we've moved a couple of times since then. So, yeah, I would say we've been through a number of things. And so we thought we would make this video to give some advice on what your standards should be, or maybe you should just adjust a couple of standards, and things to look for on a first date that can lead to a real relationship.
Right, absolutely. And I'm glad I'm in a real relationship with you. All right, well, thank you for tuning in to Azimuth Podcast, and stay tuned after these messages.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all of the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in.